Buenos días, excelencias, distinguidos invitados, estimados socios, honorables colegas, señoras y señores. So this would be all my Spanish. Actually, I understand a lot as my language, it's Latin-based as yours, but I can't speak and I would have loved to honor all of you speaking directly in Spanish. Today, it's very difficult to start talking after Mrs. Alicia Bárcena. The secretary had such a powerful and inspiration, in my opinion, speech debriefing from the COP30. Unfortunately, it was not that successful, but it's in our power to do that. And my discussion actually today with you, it's around the fact that sustainability, it's not the acronym that it's so overused, the ESG, but it's more actually about governance. Because if we have a responsible and good governance, then everything else should be falling into place. I have 7 points for you today. I have also something that you could watch and inspire. I'm not sure whether we can put it on. Thank you. And we start, and I'm starting exploring the question, is there a future for sustainability? My aim through this talk and presentation is actually not to convince you that there is still future, because I think everybody knows that there is a future and it's on us. It's more the question, how do we make it? How do we make it happen? So this is not a rhetorical question. It is a practical challenge that defines the trajectory of our economies, about our societies and our ecosystems. Sustainability is no longer a peripheral concern for any of us. It is foundation of the resilience that you should manifest, the competitiveness, and the survival of the 21st century. So the question asks whether the security, prosperity, and equity can coexist amid the fragmented geopolitics that we have already seen in the previous speech, the extreme weather that we already experience, the supply chain rewiring, and the information disorder. And my answer is obviously yes, there is a future for sustainability if we govern it rather than to just show it. If we finance grids, resilience, and skills, and the nature with the same urgency and emergency that we devote to national security. And in that direction, it is crucial if we invest nonetheless in education and in corporate value creation, aligning with this policy ambition, translated again through certifications. Of course, it's my role to talk about education. I cannot escape it, and I wouldn't like to do that, because what we lack in today's world is focusing on updating our skills, our knowledge, our know-how, because in this environment which is ever-changing, nothing stays the same. So if you believe we have one university or two universities or a PhD, and this is the end of it, no, it's not. We have to continuously invest in our education. As Edgar Morin reminds us, the future is not what will happen. The future is what is being made through our thinking, our imagination, and our actions. So let us imagine it, and let us act. Over the past decade, sustainability has moved from voluntary corporate social responsibility to a core business and policy imperative. We talked about decarbonization, circular economy, take, make, dispose models into regenerative systems, and so on. Nature-based solutions appeared everywhere. Biodiversity and restoration and ecosystem services are gaining traction, is true, and as essential components of the climate resilience. And there is, of course, the finance part, where sustainable assets are projected to surpass by 2030 $40 trillion, which represents nearly a quarter of the global assets under management. Investors are no longer asking if sustainability matters, they're asking how fast companies can adapt. And of course, there is also controversy to it. I'm sure you've heard that BlackRock, the famous big investment fund, had actually withdrawn its investments in sustainable bonds. So where do we go from here? Is progress remains uneven. While Europe leads is true in ESG integration and sustainability strategies, other regions struggle under economic constraints and geopolitical instability, because there is no secret that being sustainable, it comes with a cost. Now the mindset has to change. Is it a cost or is it an investment in our future? So sustainability is a global in ambition but local in execution, and that tension will define the next decade. According to Standard & Poor's Global, sustainability has become a license to operate, not a choice. 72% of global consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable products. Corporate sustainability has reached critical mass. 63% of executives now believe sustainability drives long-term profitability. And the UN SDG report in 2025 warns that progress is uneven. While renewable energy investment hit 1.8 trillion in 2024, emissions reductions remain insufficient to meet the 1.5 Celsius target. Risks and credibility challenges. That's my second point. With growth comes scrutiny. Sustainability faces credibility risks we cannot ignore. We talk about greenwashing, whitewashing, data washing. So any kind of washing now, it comes and fires back to us. Next slide, please. So we have the greenwashing. Yes, it is matured, has no longer just about the buzzword or vague promises. It's now about structural misrepresentation, over-reliance on low-integrity carbon offsets rather than real emissions reductions, selective boundary setting, such as excluding sub-3 emissions, supply chain, or other high-impact categories, scenario modeling that assumes overly optimistic technology or policy futures to downplay the risk, and last but not least, marketing green products with without full life cycle assessments. The European Commission found that 53% of green claims in 2023 were misleading or unverified. Regulators are catching up. Companies may face legal consequences for misleading claims, but both are under consumer law and in financial reporting contexts. Whitewashing. It has actually a very big social impact. It's highlighting one positive initiative while ignoring the systemic harm, which remains as a reputational risk. We talk about a transition plan that may tout decarbonization without addressing how communities or workers will be affected, like plant closures or job losses. Human rights in global supply chain can be minimized or ignored. And diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts may be reported superficially without tackling the root issue of voice, power, and structural discrimination. Data washing. With more metrics, more reporting, and more data, there is growing risk of data manipulation or selective disclosure. And if furthermore, today we faced what it is called ideological data washing, because who inputs the data can manipulate us as well. Companies might cherry-pick the KPIs. Data may be based on self-reported supplier estimates without audit, undermining credibility. And there is a risk of synthetic sustainability performance. We create the appearance of sustainable rigor via data models rather than meaningful action. As reporting regimes like CSRD mature and external assurance becomes mandatory, data integrity and verification will be central to trust. Regulators are tightening disclosure rules, with EU CSRD requiring 50,000 companies to report standardized sustainability data. Credibility demands more than metrics. It demands transparency, science-based targets, and independent audits. Governance is evolving from compliance to purpose-driven transformation. Legal innovations are reshaping the landscape, and one innovative concept talking about governance, which is the backbone of our transformation, it's called today Benefit Corporation. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Benefit Corporation in the room? Anybody? Okay. Very lucky coincidence, today is being launched the book which is called Beyond Profit. It's a book being written by Lorenzo Fioramonti, which is the initiator of the concept, and Dr. Victoria Hurt, which is the initiator and the conceiver of ISO 37000 in governance, 30011 as well, which is governance with purpose. Have you heard about these two ISO standards, governance standards? I recommend you to look at it. Obviously, there is a huge pressure outside the corporations to adapt the governance, the inside and outside governance, to these new standards, which talk about companies that have beyond the profit a purpose for the communities. What does it mean, benefit corporation? It's actually a for-profit entity that pursues not only profit, but simultaneously the social impact positive for the communities. So we don't talk, we actually retake a saying, a statement of Peter Drucker from the 80s, which said at that time that companies that will not have a purpose in the future will cease to exist. So now we are 40 years later, and finally we talk about that, it's starting to implement with standards, governance standards. Benefit corporation is present today as a legal framework in very many important countries. I will start by saying, of course, Italy, because Lorenzo is Italian. He was former Ministry of Education, former European parliamentary, and the former CEO of the Institute for Sustainability of Surrey University. And he initiated the legislation in 2016 in Italy. Now it's a formal approved legal framework. So it's valid in Italy, in France, in Spain, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in Uruguay, and 39 states in the United States of America. So I would kindly invite you to look at it, at the framework, because this is the future for us if we want to be sustainable. This is the legal framework. These benefit corporations offer that framework that requires companies, as I said, to consider social and environmental impact along with shareholders' return. Companies such as Danone, such as Patagonia, Ben & Jerry, and Tom's are leading example of this model of action already. The purpose-driven governance frameworks, like its ISO 37011, now under development, will provide global guidance for embedding purpose into governance, aligning profit, people, and planet, the triple bottom prop. ISO 37000, which already exists, sets the principles of organizational governance. Technology plays its part, obviously. Blockchain enables traceability in supply chains, ensuring ethical sourcing and transparency. Integrated reporting links the financial and non-financial performance, creating a holistic view of value creation, and enables also the traceability in such a way that I would take the whitewashing and the data washing. Governance for sustainability means choices and action aimed at systemic change, not just maintaining the status quo. The fourth point, artificial intelligence and sustainability paradox. Well, it is a paradox. Artificial intelligence is both a catalyst and a challenge for sustainability. Ensuring AI adoption has to align with sustainability principles to avoid deepening the inequalities. On one hand, AI enables predictive analytics for energy efficiency, for climate modeling, and resource optimization. Google DeepMinds, for example, reduced energy use in data centers by 40% through AI-driven cooling optimization. On the other hand, AI carries its own carbon footprint. Data centers consume massive amounts of energy, raising questions about whether the tools we use to fight climate change might exacerbate it. The solution lies in green AI and in ethical governance to ensure algorithms do not perpetuate biases or harm vulnerable communities, and we do not allow AI to fantasize too much. Environmental impacts, just a few of them. AI workloads are among the most energy-intensive computing tasks. Locally, the data center clusters, particularly where AI workloads concentrate, can stress grids, raise carbon emissions, and demand careful energy planning. On the other hand, optimization with AI can improve energy forecasting, optimize logistics, and reduce waste. I think we skipped the page. Precision systems in agriculture, AI can reduce fertilizer use, water consumption, the secretary just spoke about that, and inputs. Predictive maintenance helps extend asset lifetimes, thus reducing resource extraction and material waste. And monitoring, AI models combined with satellite or sensor data can detect deforestation, illegal dumping, or biodiversity loss in nearly real time. The AI actually has a very strong impact on all three areas. We talk about social impacts because AI reshapes work, society, and governance. We talk about labor disruption, bias and fairness, access, and opportunities. Governance framework must address these via ethical AI policies, transparency, and accountability. We talk about governance risks. Leaders must grapple with new risk types, opacity, because many AI systems are just black boxes, and non-technical leaders may struggle to understand model decisions. Vendor risk, overdependence on a few cloud or AI providers can concentrate both operational and reputational risk. Liability, if AI decisions lead to harm, discriminatory output, for example, or safety failure, who is actually responsible? And regulation, AI is increasingly regulated. ESG frameworks need to integrate AI governance, risk assessment, and compliance. Therefore, AI governance must be embedded in sustainability governance, not siloed as a technological issue. The fifth point, education and skills for sustainability. This is, for me, the most important point. The sustainability transition is also a skills revolution. It is about embedding purpose and building skills and capacity for credible sustainability principles and strategy implementation. 85% of executives, of the leaders, report a shortage of sustainability expertise. This gap threatens actually progress. Universities must embed climate literacy, circular economy principles, and sustainability analytics into their curricula. Lifelong learning is essential because sustainability is not just technical, it is a leadership mindset. Organizations like International Association for Sustainable Economy, like ours, are addressing this challenge throughout global recognized certification, the ISF and the ISB for finance professionals and for business leaders. And these certifications are built on 4 standards: education, examination, ethics, and experience. And what is more important for us, because we aim at mass education, we are equipping the practitioners with credible sustainability implementation skills. Upskilling through IASE certification enhances credibility, and we believe resilience and competitiveness in a changing global economy. Thus, embedding sustainability competencies across teams, companies, accelerate turning strategy into operational results. 6th point, global policy momentum. This is even harder to talk about. In an era where we talk about wars at every corner of the world, where people are thinking more about profits and less about the future, despite these geopolitical turbulences, policy momentum persists. Even with good intent, many sustainability efforts fail or backslide. There are 5 common pitfalls. 1, sustainability as window dressing. If sustainability lives only in reports or communications, it rarely transforms operations. Without embedding sustainability in procurement, R&D, product strategy, and risk management, it's just a marketing gimmick, another one. 2nd, over-reliance on offsets. Offsets can be a bridge, but they are not a substitute for real emissions reduction. Excessive offsetting without actual operational change undermines credibility and risk management. 3rd, carbon myopia. Focusing solely on carbon overlooks other critical issues. Biodiversity loss, water stress, waste, social justice. A narrow sustainability strategy is a fragile one. 4th, inadequate board or leadership competencies. Leaders that lack sustainability expertise, climate science literacy, or digital Risk understanding may underestimate or mismanage structural risks. Sustainability oversight needs to be deeply integrated in company governance, and not only. Fifth, underestimating the transition cost. Transitioning business models to decarbonize or to be more socially inclusive requires capital, talent, and time. Without a realistic roadmap, companies can set ambitious goals, but will fail to deliver. The Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals provide integrated frameworks for climate and development. Carbon pricing is now implemented in over 70 jurisdictions worldwide. And the concept of just a transition is ensuring equity and inclusion in climate action is really gaining traction. But sustainability must survive trade wars, energy crises, and political polarization, and policy alone cannot carry the weight. It needs leadership and collaboration. My last point for today is actually talking about us. It's about leadership imperatives. Leadership is the linchpin of sustainability. Authenticity matters. Leaders must move beyond compliance to purpose-driven strategies. Collaboration matters. No single actor can solve systemic challenges like this. Alliances across sectors are essential. Innovation matters. Incremental tweaks will not suffice. We need bold, disruptive solutions and, above all, distributed intelligence. As complexity grows, control must be shared. Sustainability depends on systems that sense, respond, and adapt. Here is a roadmap for credible, future-proof sustainability agenda. Let us commit to science-aligned targets, use science-based frameworks for emissions, but expand into nature-based targets, adopt multi-capital accounting, not just financial, but natural capital in ecosystems, human capital and social capital, invest in measurement and assurance, build robust data systems, supplier-level data, audited inputs, and third-party verification, use external assurance as reporting regimes, integrate AI to help with monitoring, but not to make the numbers look good and not to make the decision. Use it for verification, anomaly detection, and continuous improvement. Third, build governance for AI and sustainability. Establish AI risk committee or integrate AI into oversight of existing risk or sustainability committee. Require transparency. Leaders should understand key models, their uses, data resources, and failure modes. Mitigate vendor concentration risk, diversify AI infrastructure providers, and negotiate for shared model transparency. Fourth, embedded just transition principle. Partners with communities, workers, and civil society to co-create transition plans. Allocate capital for reskilling, social protection, and community investment. Report not just on emissions, but on social outcomes, jobs, equity, inclusion. And last but not least, accelerate collaboration. Sustainability is systemic. No company, no government, no investor can go it alone. Build across sector ecosystems, co-innovate with governments, academia, non-government organizations, and peers on nature-based solutions, circular economy, and regenerative models. Use public-private partnership for high-impact projects like restoring ecosystems or building green infrastructure. The last decade made sustainability shift from the margins to the mandate. Leaders recognize that climate risk is financial risk. Social capital is market trust. Governance is the backbone of the long-term value. Purpose-led governance is moving from rhetoric to architecture, with standards and legal forms emerging to hardwire public value into corporate DNA. I can give you just a few examples from the listed companies because I know most of you are from that. Research firms research confirms that sustainability is not a cost, it's a catalyst. For example, firms with strong sustainability performance show higher return on equity and return on assets over time. In fact, for example, 74% of US CEOs expect significant returns on sustainability investment within the 5 years. High sustainability firms outperform peers on stock market over 15 years. Here I want to give another concrete example. In FTSE 250 that implemented, for example, only diversity strategies in their boards, the non-executive part, outperformed the market between 5 percentage points to up to 20 percentage points over 5 years. This is really huge, 20 percentage points. This is huge. Germany, for example, targets a 65% emissions cut by 2030 and estimate neutrality by 2045. We all know the Germans are very ambitious and they can do it. Spain reduced emissions by 39% since 2005, while GDP grew. China actually the world's renewable powerhouse, installing more solar and wind capacity than the rest of the world combined. My closing statement. So, is there a future for sustainability? The answer is depends on us, on whether we treat sustainability as a checkbox or as a compass guiding every decision that we will make. The future is not guaranteed, but it is possible. It begins with bold ideas, shared responsibility, and unwavering commitment. As we stand at a turning point, the decisions we make now in boardrooms, in governments, in capital planning, and in public policy, we will determine whether sustainability is a footnote in the history of humanity or a foundation to our economic future. And in so doing, the future of sustainability is not a question of possibility. It's a question of will. Gracias por su atención.